Today we are going to talk about a mother who kept her son captive for 8 years and abused him daily. I know that besides being shocking, this case is completely unusual. We are very used to seeing cases where the man is the abuser, and when we encounter a woman in this role, things become extremely strange. And since it involves a mother abusing her son, I would say the case becomes extremely bizarre. Well, of course, I will tell you everything in detail, but first, I kindly ask that if you are new here and not yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and help this redhead here reach 200,000 subscribers soon. Come on. Oh, don't forget to also activate the notification bell, because that way, every time I publish a new video, YouTube will notify you and you can rush here to watch with me. I also invite you to follow me on social media because I'm always interacting with you there. But now let's get to what matters and dive into today's case. Before we start today's case, I want to give you a warning. This video has a documentary nature and was produced using information available on the internet compiled into a video. The purpose of this documentary is not to shock anyone, much less disrespect the people involved. As you know, on this channel, the facts are narrated with the utmost respect possible. Rudolph Gabriel Farias IV was born on October 1st, 1997. Here we have a Libra. He was born and raised in the city of Houston, which is in the U.S. state of Texas. His father was a war veteran named Rudolph Farias III, and his mother was named Jenny Santana. During the boy's childhood, everything happened as naturally as possible. He was a boy passionate about cars, and people reported that the boy was a spitting image of his father, very similar indeed. The boy also had a half-brother named Charles, who was from Jenny's previous relationship. Charles was 7 years older than Rudy, and the two were very close. However, when Rudy was only 11 years old, he was shocked by Charles's death, who was a victim of a motorcycle accident. The boy even saw his brother injured because he and his mother quickly arrived at the accident scene. So imagine the trauma it was for this boy, seeing his older brother, who was basically his role model, dying. A few years later, Rudy's father also died, and it was in an even more traumatic way because the man took his own life. It was even reported that the boy felt very guilty about his father's death. He believed that everyone around him would die and he would end up alone. However, he still had his mother, who constantly comforted the boy. When he was 17, on March 16, 2015, Rudy went out in the morning to walk his dog and never returned home. The next day, on March 17, 2015, the boy's mother went to the Houston Police Department and reported his disappearance. According to Jenny's statement, the family dog had returned home alone and she did not know where her son was. The desperate mother also informed the authorities that the boy suffered from asthma attacks and depression. The search began immediately, and a team of police officers scoured the entire city. They also collected statements from family, friends, neighbors, and everyone who had seen the boy on the morning of the 16th, who said the young man was limping as if his leg was injured. The authorities expanded the search area, and even police stations in neighboring states were notified about Rudy's disappearance. Searches in the region's rivers and lakes were also conducted. But all the efforts of the search teams were not yielding any clues about the boy's whereabouts. An online fundraiser was created to raise money and help Jenny support herself, considering she quit her job to fully dedicate herself to the search for her son. The entire community was moved by the woman's story, who had lost her husband, her eldest child, and now her youngest son was also missing. In 2016, Jenny gave an interview to a TV program about missing persons, and she shared with the audience her theory that her son had been kidnapped by a human trafficking gang. She even reminded the audience that she had already lost her eldest son and her husband, and that the thought of not being able to see her youngest broke her heart. Moreover, due to all this buzz, a bizarre story about Jenny's husband, that is, Rudy's father, came to light. According to information provided by the Houston Police, Rudolph, the boy's father, was being investigated for fraud at work. I don't remember if I told you, but after leaving the U.S. Armed Forces, Rudolph joined the Houston Police, and one of his main duties was issuing traffic fines. However, it was discovered that the fines he issued were fraudulent. He basically noted down the license plates of various vehicles and entered the fines into the system after his working hours. In this way, it counted as overtime because the system understood that he was still working. However, he didn't realize that this scheme would backfire at any moment because he entered all the fines at once after his shift, and the locations of the violations were far apart from each other. So he wouldn't have had enough time to travel between the two different violation locations. And that's how he got caught. In fact, it was reported that the reason for Rudolph's suicide was exactly this. He found out he was being investigated and didn't want to tarnish his family's reputation, so he ended up taking his own life. Well, the search for Rudy continued, and even Facebook groups were created to share information about the young man's disappearance, and even the public helped to look for the boy. However, no one ever found any clues that could help solve this mysterious disappearance, and gradually, the hopes of finding Rudy alive faded away. Until 8 years later, more precisely on June 29, 2023, the police were called by someone who found a young man lying unconscious in front of the Immaculate Heart of Mary Church. The young man, 25 years old, regained consciousness when the police arrived, but he had great difficulty communicating. The police then searched the man and found a credit card belonging to Jenny Santana with him. The woman was then contacted, and upon arriving at the scene, it was confirmed that the man was none other than Rudolph, Gabriel Farias, her missing son. The police then wanted to call an ambulance to take the man to the hospital, but Jenny quickly intervened, saying that it would cost many, many dollars and that she would take her son to the emergency room herself. As we know, healthcare and health services in general in the United States are indeed very expensive. So the police understood the mother's position and allowed her to transport her son to the emergency room herself. The young man had several bruises on his body and 2 cuts on his head, but his condition was stable. While all this was happening, a very peculiar discovery was made. That's because, remember I told you, that Rudy had his mother Jenny's credit card? And this might have gone unnoticed if it weren't for the fact that the boy had been missing for 8 years, and the credit card found with him was issued in 2021. In other words, how could he be in possession of his mother's credit card, which was issued in 2021, if he had been missing since 2015? This was the first red flag that the authorities noticed, but they wanted to talk to the boy to better understand what happened during the time he was missing. The boy's mother even posted a photo of him in the hospital bed. He was lying down and his head was covered. In the caption of the photo, she said that Rudy was very physically and emotionally hurt, and that he refused to talk to anyone, and even to be touched. She even asked people to give them a bit of privacy and concluded by saying that at the right and opportune moment, she would return with more details, and they would tell everything that happened. Later, his aunt said that the photos Jenny had posted on her social media were old photos taken when Rudy had a depressive episode shortly after he lost his older brother. The woman also suggested that Jenny probably hadn't taken the boy to the hospital and was hiding the young man. Before Rudy spoke with the authorities, his mother gave an off-camera interview to a local newspaper. She stated that her son had revealed to her that he was kidnapped and taken to Mexico, but managed to return to Houston on his own. following the moon to head north, which to me is an extremely bizarre statement, considering that we are talking about an international border here. Even if he could follow the moon to go north, which is already bizarre, how would he cross the United States-Mexico border alone, without any documents, and without being caught by the border police? Something basically impossible, right, folks? Rudy remained silent for several consecutive days, and the authorities concluded that it would be easier and more comfortable for the man if they conducted a sort of unofficial interrogation in a more cozy place than at a police station. And for this reason, the interrogation took place in a hotel in Houston. Besides the police authorities, there were some media people present, including an activist related to missing persons named Quinel X, who was very moved by everything Rudy had to say. After telling everything about his disappearance, the man was seen leaving the hotel with a towel over his head to hide his face and leaving together with his mother. This interrogation was supposed to be confidential, but the details ended up leaking and going viral worldwide because Rudy's statements were explosive. According to the activist who participated in this meeting and exposed the facts to the media, on the day of his disappearance, Rudy ran away from home and spent 2 days on the street. When he returned, his mother said that he needed to stay hidden because the police were looking for the young man to arrest him due to him having run away from home. He believed Jenny and therefore cooperated with the woman so that no one would see him anywhere. Additionally, it was reported that the mother had intimate relations with her son, and this happened quite frequently. Jenny admitted that she really kept her son hidden, but denied having any kind of relationship with the boy. In the boy's version, he said that his mother would lie naked next to him and tell him that he had to act as if he were daddy, and if he refused, she would threaten him, saying she would call the police to arrest him. He also said that Jenny made him her husband and always called him daddy when she kissed his mouth. Another important detail that Quinel X explained to the media was about the boy's captivity. He said that Jenny provided drugs to the boy and used her influence as his mother to convince him to obey her. In this way, she didn't need to lock him up as he followed she'll be all her commands. It was kind of an emotional captivity, always saying that if he refused to obey, she would call the police and he would be arrested. It was also found that after a few years, when Rudy's appearance had already transformed into that of an adult man, the two would travel together, and the young man was always carrying false documents for this. Neighbors also happened to see the man around the house, but Jenny always said it was a close relative who had come to visit her, completely dismissing the idea that her son Rudy was at home, thus prolonging the story of the false disappearance even further. Well, the one who exposed all this to the media was the Texan activist, right? Who watched the interrogation of the mother and son, Quinel X. He even proposed public pressure to prevent Rudy from returning home with his mother, which eventually happened. He also questioned the authorities about not proceeding with a report to the public prosecutor's office regarding the abuses Rudy suffered. However, the authorities responded by saying that Rudy was an adult and chose not to report his mother. Therefore, the state could not do anything. Furthermore, the authorities were not authorized to speak about the interrogation, which was extrajudicial and completely confidential. A few weeks later, Rudy himself gave an interview to Fox News in Houston. In this interview, he said he was extremely shaken by everything that happened and mentioned that his mother took advantage of him in a very severe way. To think your mom took advantage of you? To think your mom took advantage of you? Do you think your mom took advantage of you? But when asked about the abuses, he evaded the question. He said that Jenny really treated him as if he were her late father, but he did not confirm the abuses. Did your mom want you to play the role of a husband in the house? Yes, more or less. Basically, that's how it made me feel. After this interview, activist Quenelle X, who had leaked the information from the first interrogation and talked about the abuses, said he was extremely concerned about Rudy as he believed the man was still under his mother's control and feared for the young man's life. I watched Rudy's interview in full, folks, and to be honest with you, I believe there are many loose ends. Although he is a 25-year-old adult, he spent 8 years locked inside the house, going out very few times and always using another identity, which makes me think it further affected the young man's psyche. It's as if he's still 17. You know, the traumas he experienced kind of held him back in the past. I mean, something like that. I think you understand where I'm getting at, right? He also said during the interview, folks, that he wants to move on with his life and doesn't want any more contact with Jenny, and that he understands he suffered from Stockholm Syndrome, which is a mental state where the victim develops affection or love for their aggressor. Do you want to talk to her? No, not really. I don't want contact with her. I just want to live my life away from her. She can do what she wants. I don't care. I just want to live my life. I want to have a family. I just want to live my life. After this interview, Rudy left his mother's house and went to live with an aunt named Pauline, who reported that her nephew's behavior fluctuates a lot. At times, he behaves like a 25-year-old adult. At other times, like a 13-year-old teenager. In other words, there is really a significant mental confusion in this boy. When asked about activist Quenelle X's statements regarding intimate abuse, Pauline said she cannot say and whether this information is true or false, because as she herself stated, her nephew's mind is a mess and he is going through a lot at the moment. In any case, some local newspapers countered Quenelle's information and say that he is known for making up lies, which has left the population completely divided. Many believe that Jenny did not abuse the boy, but there are those who say that this was the main reason she hid her son for so many years. After all, for what other reason would she hide her son? But what do you think, huh? Did she really have intimate relations with her own son all this time? And if she didn't, why did she hide him from people? Why did she make up this story about the disappearance? What would be like the motivation for all of this? Anyway, folks, the neighbors reported that after the case was discovered, Jenny moved out of the property she was living in, but not before being caught there, talking to a neighbor and saying she was afraid of being arrested. After that, no one heard from the woman again. Oh, an important piece of information is that the platform used to organize the fundraiser, which raised thousands of dollars over Rudy's fake disappearance for 8 years, announced that it will sue Jenny for fraud. Well, I firmly believe that things have not been fully clarified yet, and that there will probably be an update on this case. Maybe this case will have a twist, because as we know, Rudy's mind is a mess, and he might report his own mother and decide to change the entire version of what he has said so far, right? Well, the police are still investigating the case. They are waiting for more information from Rudy. And of course, I will come back to update you on this. And that's why it's so important for you to subscribe to the channel, because that way, when I publish any updates on any case, you'll be informed and always up to date on this kind of subject. Before wrapping up today's case, I need to share some news with you. Our channel will have a new segment, a criminal podcast, where I will bring guests to chat with us in a super interactive live session. The first guest couldn't be anyone else. She's one of my best friends in the true crime niche here on YouTube. And of course, you must already know I'm talking about Lilia, right, folks? From the channel Casos Criminais. Well, the first podcast will take place on Sunday, July 30th at 5 p.m. Brasilia time. And I look forward to seeing you there to help me welcome this diva of criminal cases. But that's it, folks. I hope you enjoy this news. Thank you so much to everyone who stayed with me until now. A kiss to all of you, and see you in the next video.